All right. So we first of all like to welcome everyone to our Tuesday night class again at Bet Juhura. Everybody is always welcome to join us at 8 p.m. at 630 Avenue S. We'd also like to welcome all our Torah Anytime followers, and also a very neat thing on Torah Anytime that you guys, if you're not familiar with, you could actually follow a certain speaker. So if let's say you like a certain speaker, you could just hit the follow button, and then automatically you'll get an email whenever they post something new on the site, right? So you could that's a very neat feature, and it's really handy to have. Okay, so let's begin. We are going to do thank you. Okay, again we are learning tonight Refuah Shlema to Sabina Bina Bat Merivera, and so a very important topic tonight. The topic tonight is on looks. How important is looks in a marriage, right? For men, many will say not only is it so important, it's a deal breaker. And for women, on the other hand, I guess depending on the woman. There's a few things that we want to speak about. Number one is we want to speak about how important looks are in a marriage. Number two is if, let's say, you're married already, and you're not so, whatever, God forbid something happened, you're not so attracted anymore to your wife. Is there anything that you could do without shelling out thousands of dollars in plastic surgery and breaking your wife's heart, that telling her that she needs plastic surgery, that you could do to make her more beautiful in your eyes? So that will be the goal, and Mizrat Hashem, we should hopefully accomplish that. So, being that we're speaking a little bit about marriage, there was once a New York Times or something, a local newspaper, where they was doing a report on a very long-lasting marriage that happened between two couples, which is very uncommon that they should be married and happy for so many years. It was like a 50-year anniversary. So the news reporter went and says, "What's the secret? What is the secret? How are you guys married for so long?" So the wife starts saying, says, it all dates back to our honeymoon. Says one time we were on our honeymoon, we were in the Grand Canyon, and we went in there and we were riding on a mule down the Grand Canyon. And the mule, was walking down a rocky path and it slipped once. So her husband very quietly says, "That's once." And then, they were going a little bit longer, and the mule slips again. And he says, "That's twice." And then, so that, they figure maybe the wife thought maybe the mule is, slipping, not feeling so well. At the end, she goes, the mule goes, and like a half hour later, it slips again. The man whispers, "That's 3 times. He takes out a pistol out of his pocket, a revolver, and shoots the donkey in the head. So the wife sees this. His newly married husband just shot the donkey in the head. She's like, "What's going on over here? What did the mule do to you?" So the man said quietly, "That's once." So since then, no problems. So there are many people that the way they run marriage is by, the way I say it is the way it goes, right? I put my foot down, right? He doesn't know his wife tells him to put the foot down, when to put the foot down, right? That's the way usually marriage really works. But the ruling with the strong hand doesn't necessarily always work, and it's definitely not the best scenario. So to begin, we have to, the first point of attack is we want to speak about the importance of modesty. There was once a guy who walked into a bar with a gun blazing, and he's like, "Which one of you slept with my wife?" So one guy stands in the back and he says, "You don't have enough bullets in that gun," right? Which means that his wife, has done a few things that she shouldn't have done, right? So the question is that when you get married, there are certain things that everyone puts up top as the most important things. But what should really be the most important thing? Now I'll give you a scenario. Some of you may have heard this before. You have 2 situations that you have possible. Number one is you could have a beautiful wife, like a 10 supermodel, like no one ever seen before, and everything is great, but she's very, very flirtatious, right? She's not a modest woman, and every guy she sees, they're like, "Oh, hey," and she's like, "Oh," and goes and chats with them like they're best friends, and things are great for about 2 to 5 years. Give it whichever years you want, right? After 2 to 5 years, you find out that she cheated you, God forbid, and that's it. The marriage is over. Right, but for 2 to 5 years, you had this best marriage in the world. You couldn't imagine how lucky you are to get a girl like that. That's scenario number one. Scenario number two is you have a woman that's good-looking, average, regular good-looking woman, and but she's a modest woman, and she's not all out there, and you guys, go, and the marriage is good. It's very nice. It's not like amazing as the other one. Who here would choose, the second one over the first one? Which means who would you rather have a less prettier wife but less flirtatious and more modest, or would you rather have a more beautiful wife but more provocative and more flirtatious? Does anybody choose number one? Doesn't realize who we're dealing with over here. Nobody. Nobody would rather have a prettier wife than an average wife if the average wife is more modest.
I don't know.
You're not sure. So
I'm afraid. The average wife.
you would rather have a prettier wife but the marriage only lasts for 5 years than a regular wife that lasts forever?
No.
I'll tell you like this, before you answer any more, whoever answers number one is not ready for marriage. Right? Because if he's joking, it's not, well, he was just telling what the other
You
thing.
can't really judge.
I think he's joking.
But it's,
But he's actually processing that he's right now.
well,
The wife could be pretty also for the.
yeah, we're talking a very hypothetical situation that is very unlikely to ever happen, but very hypothetical. Obviously, what everyone is really thinking is like, no, I'm going to have a wife that's pretty and she's going to be modest, right? And that's why they're 45 and single, right? And but the idea is that most people that are ready to get married and they want to get married, they would rather go for a less pretty wife but a more modest wife. Now, this is first of all, modesty is not only in dress. It's also, in actions, in the way she walks, in the way she talks, in the way that she interacts with people. Modesty is not just, having a short skirt and, sleeveless. That's not just, modesty goes in a lot more. A person could dress covering all the places that they're supposed to as a woman, but messing up and, it's very provocative, it's very tight, it's very colorful, or whatever. There's a whole other array of halachot that, that they could be violating. But they say, look, it's blocked, it's covered, everything is good. Or they could be dressed like that, and then they could go and talk with every other guy. They could have, 2 Facebook friends that are women, and like 500 male Facebook friends, right? Those type of women generally, who you really want to date a girl like that? You really want to date a girl that has 550 men and 2 women. One of them is her mother, and the other one is some random person she just doesn't remember, right? And you ask these girls, what's going on? Why do you have that, right? Always the answer is, women are so much drama, right? And whatever the reason they give, that's not a modest situation. A woman should not, whatever, they'll get started on Facebook. They shouldn't have it all together. And if you should have it, you should definitely not having the other opposite gender having, messages and friends and whatnot. But moving along, there is the problem goes further, is when the husband, wants his wife to be dressed to kill, which means he wants her to wear the most provocative clothing. He wants her to dress in a certain way. And, you ask the obvious question is, what's going on? Why would you want that for your wife? It makes absolutely no sense. So, people always used to say, it's just eye candy, right? Eye candy is the worst type of candy, by the way, right? It's worse than it's worse than a lot of other things. So the problem is that why would a man go and want his wife to dress provocative? Reason is for pride. So yeah, look what I got. That's right. It's mine. It's not yours. No. Yeah, you can look, but you can't touch. The stupidest thing ever, right? What type of person would want somebody? Nobody would ever want, somebody to touch his wife. But to look at it, not only do they don't mind, unfortunately, the secular world, but they feel good about it. Be like, that's right. You saw him. Yeah, I was checking you out. It's terrible. It's a terrible thing. What's going on up here? The answer is pride. The answer is a man has a lot of pride, and this comes into a very big issue. I know I had a friend once, many years ago. He was dating a girl, and this girl that he was dating, he wasn't attracted to her, but her personality was amazing. And he's like, you know what? Her personality is so good. Let's see what happens. So he kept on, dating her, and it turned out that the more that he dated her, the more that he became to this girl. At the end, he broke it off. And I asked him, asked him afterwards. I'm like, what's going on? I thought it was getting better. I thought, it was working. And he said something which is very shocking, but also very honest. He says, if I'm walking in the street, I want to be proud, not ashamed, right? Which means he did not want to marry the girl, not because his feelings, because what is his friends going to think? What is his friends going to think? This girl was great, and he told me afterwards. He said there was a few girls that he could have married, and it would have been great wives, and it was his mistake, and he messed up. She should have gone and married them. There are people that don't get married for stupid reasons. Question?
No.
There are people that don't get married for the dumbest reasons, and at the end they really regret it. They really regret it. There was once somebody that I know. Actually, I know a few people like this, where the husband buys the wife clothes. I don't know how that's possible, and I don't know how that works, because I would be terrible at it. But apparently this is what, and she likes it, and a few of them I spoke to, they actually like it. So, but the biggest shocking thing for me is that religious man, he buys his wife completely immodest clothing. like very blatantly against halakha and very blatantly that's not modest. And I'm like thinking, I'm like, what's going through his mind? I'm like, not only is he allowing, okay, doesn't say anything when his wife's dressed like that, but he goes and he buys it for her. So yeah, why don't you go wear it, right? The answer is it's all pride. It's like, look what I got. This is what I got. This is my trophy wife. This is a very big issue. Not only is it a big issue, this has to be worked on before you even get married. Not only after you get married and after the problems, God forbid, start. I want to show you the importance of this, and through that I'm going to paint a picture, and let me take you through this journey, through this. Just pretend in this situation that it is you. The girls, I don't know how you can pretend because it's going to be a guy-oriented, but bear with me. So there was once a person, and this person is you, and you're going on this a birthright trip to Israel, right? And you are going on this trip to Israel. Thank you. You're going on this trip to Israel, and you get on the plane, and you realize like this entire plane is like full of birthright people. It's like completely like, it's all birthright, and it's like almost everyone's Jewish on this plane. And so you get on the plane, and the plane takes off. Now the plane is flying for a few hours, going from New York to Israel, and about 3-4 hours into the flight, you see there's some turbulence. After there's some turbulence, suddenly the lights start flickering, and then somebody starts screaming. There's smoke coming from the engine, and people start going crazy, and they're going berserk. And meanwhile, the pilot's not saying anything. He's trying to fly the plane, trying to figure out what's the problem, and suddenly the lights go off, and everybody just goes berserk. Right, the masks go down, and the pilot comes out. He can't even use the loudspeaker, and he says, "Listen, guys," he says, "we've been having engine problems. We have to land immediately." And he says, "Please bear with me. Please stay calm. We'll see what we can do." So he goes back into the cockpit, and he tries to land. Now most of the electronics is gone. He can't even radio back to ground, telling them that there's an issue. Right, whatever electronics he has a little bit left to guide the plane. Now, he's trying to look for a place to land. He needs to bring the plane down because it's not going to last. So right now he's smack in the middle of the ocean. There's like no land on the side, and he's thinking he needs to make a water landing. And suddenly he sees in the distance, he sees an island. So he says, it was very far out of he sees in his maps. He sees it was quite some time away from his route. But he says, what could he do? This is the only option that he has. So he detours the entire plane, and he goes to this towards this island. They're flying for about 15 minutes. It gets really shaky and it gets scary time. Every little jump, everyone's screaming. And he realizes that there's no way that this plane is making to that island. So he starts descending to make a water landing. As he's descending to make a water landing, he notices from his naked eye, without the GPS, he sees in the distance there is some sort of parcel of land. He thought maybe it's like some sort of a little speck of land from the sky. He says maybe it's like some sort of island that some rich people like to buy islands. He says maybe it's one of those type of things. So he decides he's going to go down and he's going to see maybe he can land on it. So he descends and he starts flying towards this island. Within a few minutes, he gets to this island and he starts. He figures he sees the island. He says, "Let me look to see if maybe there's possibly a runway in this island." So he starts flying around this island, and he sees not only is there no runway, this island is completely uninhabited, which means nobody lives there. There's nothing going on over there. So he circles back one more time, and he's like, "That's it. I just have to land in any flat land that I could possibly get." He goes and he finds something that he might be able to do it. And he goes and he tells his the co-pilot, "Please announce to everybody to embrace themselves for the worst. This is explain to them this is not a landing. It's going to be rough, and just stay tight and hold on tight." They all go on, and the plane slowly descends, and it lands very, very rough. So rough that one of the wing broke, and there was a large crack that went through the middle of the plane. The second that the plane skidded into a stop, the pilot runs out and he screams, "Everybody out of the plane! The engine is on fire!" Everyone books out of the plane. He says, "Don't grab anything. Just go and run." And everyone's grabbing whatever they can, and they're just booking, and they're running away from the plane. About 2 minutes after it landed, the entire like a nuclear explosion, the entire thing, the engine fire leaked into the gas tank, and the whole thing went up in flames, and the entire thing was completely gone. The entire plane was gone. So they're sitting over here, a group of about 200 people. And they're deciding, all right, we're gonna, thank God everybody made it. Nobody died, nobody, very little minimal injury. He says, now we have to wait, and hopefully a rescue will come. So they sit and they do all the things that they think is going to help. They start writing help in big signs, and they start making fire and start making smoke. And they wait for the rescue team to come. And they're waiting a day, 2 days, 3 days, nothing doing. So they said, okay, listen, we went out of, completely out of route, so they're probably going to take some time. A week turned into a month turned into a few months, and they realized nobody's coming back. Nobody's coming for them. So they figured, you know what, there was about 200 people there. They're like, listen, we got to, make be with what we have. And they start to make life on this island. They go and, they had, the island happened to be was full of natural resources. They had not running water. They had a clear water, a stream of water that they could drink. They had plants that were growing that they could eat. It was good weather. It was, everything was perfect for what they needed to be. So they go and, meanwhile, somebody pipes up, I'm a builder. Maybe we should build something. Another guy pops up, is like, I happen to be a rabbi. Maybe we should build a shul, start fundraising right in the beginning, right? And everybody came with whatever the abilities that they had, and they all worked together to, they became one big happy family. And it turned, a few months turned into 2 years. Finally, by 2 years, there was a few older women there, and they saw it. Listen, it was a birthright trip. So you see, you have about 50 young men and 50 young women on the plane, and it's been 2 years, right? They're not getting rescued, right? What did she start thinking? Let's make some shidduchim over here, right? Let's play matchmaker. So, she goes and, they go in, they interview every young, available person, and they get whatever, what are you looking for and what are you looking for? And, is there anybody that you want? Is there anybody that you want? And they went through the whole spiel. And then they come to you. And they come to you and they say, listen, they say, we spoke to the girls, all the girls, out of all the guys, all the girls love you, right? And you're like, of course, what do you think? Yeah, why not? Makes sense, right? And they say, listen, all the girls like you, and they say, there's so many girls I would rather date you first than everybody else. Yeah, you were a good-looking guy. You were, you were very, productive. You had a good personality. Everything was excellent. And they said, you get first pick. The crowd is yours. The crop is yours. Pick who you want. So, you look and you don't have to think for too long. He says there was one girl that stuck out there than everybody else, right? One girl that was much prettier than everybody else that caught your eye. And without even a second blink of an eye, you're like, I'll date that girl, right? Without even thinking about it. So the shadchanit sets it up, right? You go, you take nice long walks on the beach, because that's the only thing you could do in this island, and you hit it off. Everything is working amazing, right? So much so that you're dating for a few weeks, and you realize, listen, we're stuck over here. Even if we would be back in New York, we still think we're good together. So let's get married over here. And the rabbi says, not a problem. He could, officiate, arrange the whole thing. And Mazal Tov, the first wedding of the island, right? And slowly after that, there was more people that eventually were getting married, and everything was marital bliss for everybody. Everybody was living in paradise. There was, another 2 years go by, and you are, amazing. You're amazing. You got the best girl on the island. Like literally, you got the best girl on the island. There's nobody that can compare to this girl. You got the best one. Watching your eyes, there's nothing to talk about. She's like, she was prettier than everybody else there, on the island. So it was nothing. It wasn't even a test. So everything was really easy. The marriage was amazing. Everything worked great. Then you're on this island now for about 5 years, and suddenly there's a plane that goes over, over, and it sees, a very, one of those little, dingy planes, that people, decide they want to take flying lessons. See it go flying over there, and he's like, looks at it, and he's like, I never realized people are here. So then they see a plane, and everyone starts screaming, start doing that, and he puts the two and two together, and he radios back to, to the dispatch, and he tells them, what he sees over there, and they, look at their maps, and they're like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, that island was never inhabited. So they send out a ship, they send out the Red Cross over there, say, let's see what's going on. And they send out this huge ship, and people see the ship, they start screaming, they're going crazy, and the ship approaches, right, and they send over a small boat, and they're like, who are you guys? And they're like, oh, we're from this flight, and they tell them of the flight that 5 years ago, and they're like, that flight completely vanished, no one ever knew, whatever happened to it. So they were, so he said, no, it's like we've been here, the plane completely was demolished, it was crazy, but we're here, everyone's okay, Baruch Hashem, but, can you please send somebody to pick us up? So they were like, yeah, absolutely. And they arranged pickup, and everybody took everything, they left the entire island. They get back to the home, right? And now, after 5 years of not seeing your family, you're coming with a new family with you, right? So it took a few months to get integrated into the real world. You're coming over there, and you say, hey, mom, dad, this is my wife, here's my little ones, whatever you come carrying, and, after a few months, you get integrated into normal society, having running water. The first time they took showers with running water and soap in 5 years, right? So if you can only imagine the pleasure that they must have had, right? The Gan Eden that they must have felt. And they go and after a few months, everyone gets used to living in regular life, and they decide, now it's time to move on in life and start working. So you go and you get a job in Manhattan, and you get his job in Manhattan, this nice big firm, and for the first few months, everything is excellent. Marital life is amazing. There's no fights. There's nothing. Everything is working excellent. Then suddenly you start realizing when you're walking in Manhattan that you start not guarding your eyes, start seeing things that you really should not be looking at, and you're like wow, it's like there are like really pretty girls over here, and you're like thinking like my wife is not so compared to everything that's going on over here, and subconsciously this eats you up. Meanwhile, you always thought you got the best deal in the whole thing, and you did get the best deal. But now that you see what the whole other competition is, you're starting to be like, I could have done better, Thinking of your, the egos all the way up there, it says, oh, I could have done better. And what happens is, subconsciously, it starts eating at you. And then you don't even realize it, but then you start fighting with your wife. Without, the stupidest thing, things that mean nothing, that makes no difference. And you start fighting on the dumbest things. And you go and, life is definitely not what it used to be. And it's getting worse and worse and worse and worse. It says the first problem in marriage that usually happens is when you feel you didn't get the best end of the deal. Which means is, when you get married, should only be one time. When you get married, you should feel like you got the best end of the deal. Which means is that you're the lucky one, not her. You got, or he's the lucky one, and for the girl side. Well, the opposite. She's the lucky one and not him. This is so important in marriage, because if you feel like you're the lucky one, you're not going to fight. What are the stupid things you're not going to fight? You'd be like, how dare I fight? I'm so lucky she said yes to me. Or the other way around, I'm so lucky that he said yes to me. So this is, the second that you already feel like you didn't get the better end of the deal, that's it, it's doomed for failure. And the big problem is that nowadays, most people feel like the other person got the better end of the deal. You know what type of guy I am? All right, let her spend as much as she wants, right? She can do whatever she wants. I don't mind, I don't bother about this. You think that you're the best guy, that's already causing you for problems. This is very important, and then again, the fundamental underlining reason for this is pride. The reason is that if you're too pride, you have too much ga'ava, you have too much self-worth, you have too much pride, that leads to downfalls all the time. This is why, if you ever realize Hasidim, how do Hasidim get married? Hasidim, the real Hasidim, right? They date for maybe once or twice. I'm not talking about once or twice in years. They meet once or twice. The parents meet and they say, it sounds good, mazal tov, right? And they go and they get married. Most of these marriages, again, not everyone, not all of them, they're great marriages. They're good marriages. Now you ask, how is that possible? How do the Hasidim do it? How is it that they work? The divorce rate for the Hasidim is a lot less than the divorce rate for the modern Orthodox, or even unfortunately the regular Orthodox, especially more than the secular world. So what do they have that they're doing that's better off and the right way? And the answer is, how is it possible that someone, can you imagine this, going out and your parents set you up and be like, okay, you'll meet them twice and you're probably going to get married. Most people will just say no from the beginning, like, no, it's not happening. No, I don't care who it is. It could be Miss America, it doesn't matter, right? I can't. You're shaking your head, that's not happening. So the way that the Hasidim do it, the Hasidim are not, they're not, as kids, right? There's no TV in the house, right? They're not playing video games. They're very self-guarded. They don't see girls except for their mother and their sister, right? They're in yeshiva from the beginning until the end. Then suddenly they get 18, 19 years old. They have a girl sitting in front of them. It's the first girl that they spoke to other than their sister, right? And then, the first girl that is interested in them, and they're like, so you're interested? And you'll be like, yeah, what's the problem? The problem, and mazal tov, it's shidduch, mazal tov, and it's happily married with 21 kids, right? So the problem is on the opposite end, is that what happens by the you call it modern Orthodox, but the problem is that even the Orthodox have this, is that they don't guard their eyes. You don't watch what you're doing. You're going and you're looking at everything. You're looking at everything and you're like, no, this one's going to be better for me. No, this one's going to be better for me. No, this one's going to be better for me. No. And then eventually you always think you're going to get better. Always going to get better. This is a very big problem, because sometimes who says you deserve better, right? Many people think that they're going to get better, but whoever says that you deserve it. There is a Mishnah in Pirkei Avot. This is very important, especially for Men marry a lot of times for looks. Women, unfortunately, marry a lot of times for money. Not always, and but it does happen, right? Says the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot, Kol ahava shehi tluya bedavar, batel davar, batel ahava. Translation: any love that is contingent, is dependent on something. Once that thing that it's dependent upon disappears, the love disappears. Which means, if let's say a man goes and marries a woman for looks, and let's say she has a few babies, and she ages, it's 20 years later, she's not going to look the same way that she looked when she was 18 and you married her, or 21 when she married her, right? If you go and you marry just for the looks, then that's it. The looks are gone, so the love is gone also. And the opposite way as well. If let's say a woman marries for the money, right? Money not always stays, and even if it does stay, once you get used to the convenience of it, the love goes away. You think that you love this guy, meanwhile all you love is his convenience, right? You think that you love this girl, meanwhile all you love is really yourself and how she makes you feel when you're with her. So this is a very important topic and a very important piece that one has to understand, that when you're basing your love on external factors, all you're really loving is really just yourself. And the easiest example is if let's say someone says, "Oh, I love steak. My steak, I have this," and people brag about how they eat their steaks. I eat it black and blue. Nobody even knows what that means because it's so raw, right? And people, what they mean is, I don't love steak. I love the way that steak feels in my mouth, which means I love meat. I don't care about steak. I care about meat, right? When you go and you're dating, a woman, or you're dating a guy, and you're going and things are going well, and you have to think about it. Do you love this person, or do you really love yourself? And do you love the way that the person makes you feel? Now, that being said, it is very important that the other person makes you feel that way. You have to feel that way. You have to feel, amazing and loved and things like that, right? And also that, the Torah says, I forgot which big rabbi, he said that, listen, there's a lot of times in the beginning of the marriage, it is contingent to something. It is. You have to be contingent to something. You can't just go in somebody and say, "I love you unconditionally." You don't know anything about them. It's usually conditional. But the idea is it has to transcend that. It has to go above and beyond that, and it has to go, into something more that's deeper beyond that. There is another problem with somebody that's marrying just for looks. Somebody that marries just for looks, besides the fact that it shows that they're very shallow. And by the way, everybody now in nowadays and age, unless you're davuk to the Torah, you're non-stop learning Torah, you're a shallow person, right? Some less, some more, but in general, most people that I've dealt with are shallow people, right? Which is something that has to be dealt with. But what you have to realize is that if you're going and you're marrying just for looks, you will never be happy. Even if you marry a supermodel, because there's always going to be something called different. And different means better, right? Obama became president because of that. Change, right? That's why he went into, because he wants people like different. Why do people, and the easiest example is you have a smartphone. You have a smartphone and everything is working fine. And there's a new update that rolls out. And you're like, you know what? Let's update it. And you know that 8 out of 10, you're going to have problems with that update. All right, the phone's not really going to work as well, but you do it anyways. Like, no, it has this one little tiny extra feature, and I love it, And you do it, and you mess it up. It's the same idea as why people lease cars. Oh, I got to get the newest one, right? The same car drives the same place, right? It's going to get you point A to point B. It's going to give you air conditioning. It's going to give you the comfort. It all has shocks, right? But what? Oh, it's different. It's new. That's why people are switching over different cars every 3 years. Oh, let's try this one. Let's try this one, right? The answer is change. They like to feel something different. If somebody goes and marries a woman just because of her looks, then he's always going to see somebody else prettier. Even if she's the Miss Universe, it doesn't matter. There's always going to be different. He's going to like taller, shorter, darker, lighter, blonde, brunette, whatever it is. There's always something else different. There's always something else out there. So that's very, very important for men. For men, have to realize if you're only going after looks, you won't be happy. You won't be happy. You'll go and you'll keep on looking and you'll keep on looking, and even after you're married, you keep on looking, which only causes problems in marriage. Now, that being said, I did scream a while about looks. Looks is very important nowadays, even more so than it used to be, I believe, and allow me to explain that. There's a Gemara in Ta'anit, page 23. Right? There's a Gemara in Ta'anit, page 23. This Gemara has a very, very interesting story. This story is about Abba Chilkiah, who was a grandson of Choni HaMaga. Now, what happened was there was a time where there was no rain. So the rabbi sent a delegation to a certain very, very, very big rabbi and asked him, please go and pray for rain. Please go and pray for rain. So he goes and they send this delegation out. They go to his house and they say, "Is a rabbi here?" And she said, "No. The wife said, "No, he's working in the fields." So he goes and they find him in the field and they see this rabbi in the field over there. And they say, "Hello, shalom aleichem, my dear rabbi." He doesn't answer. He keeps completely quiet, doesn't say a word. So then he says, so they realize, maybe he doesn't want to talk, he's working. So they stand quietly until he finishes his work. He finishes his work, and they notice, they didn't say anything yet, and they just noticed the way that he walked back. And listen to the interesting things that he did when he walked back. First, he goes and he starts carrying pieces of wood. Now, he had a cloak on him. So he put a cloak on one shoulder, and he put a bunch of pile of wood on the other shoulder. And they're thinking, why not just put, save your hassle, put it on the cloak. It will help you for not getting, scratched or things like that. But they didn't say anything. Then he goes and they see that he's walking through a thorn bush. And what he does is he picks up his cloak and he walks through the thorn bush. And they're thinking, that's very odd, like the opposite, protect yourself. Then he sees that he's walking barefoot, and suddenly he gets a stream of water, he puts on shoes. And he goes to the stream of water, then he takes off the shoes. Something's going on over here. Then they see that he gets home. When he gets home, he sees his wife come out all dressed up. Very pretty, very with her ornaments, obviously very modest. They're talking about a rabbi of the Gemara, but he comes out dressed up, looking good for her husband. And she enters first back into the house. He enters, and then the delegation enters. So before he even says anything to them, he goes and he sits and he tells his wife. He says, "Listen." He says, he whispers to her and he says, "Listen, these people are probably coming for rain, that it didn't rain. Let's go up to the roof and pray now before they even ask us. So therefore it doesn't look like we did it." Right? He was very humble. And he goes up to the roof. His wife stood on one side and he stood on the other side, and they prayed for rain. Right? And after that they prayed, the clouds started coming and it started raining. So they go back down. And finally they say, "Shalom aleichem," to the new delegation that they've been following him all day. And he says, "What can I do for you?" So they smiled and said, "Rabbi, I think you know, we came for rain." And that's what he says. "Oh, look, it came for rain and it rained already. You don't even need me anymore." And they said, "Listen, Rabbi, you can't really fool us. We know that it was because of you, but we have a few questions for you." So they asked him. He says, "How come the rain?" He says, "When you went on the roof, your wife went on one side and you went to the other side. How come the rain came closer from her side, as opposed to coming from your side?" So he answered. He says, "When my wife, when people come to ask for charity, I'm usually out in the field, so all I can give is money. My wife actually gives food to the poor people, which means so the poor people are able to enjoy the food right away. And if they're able to enjoy the food right away, so they get better enjoyment out of the tzedakah that she gave. And additionally, he says, one time we had a bunch of thieves in our neighborhood. And I prayed that they should die. And my wife prayed that they should do tshuva, which they did." He says, "That's why she gets answered before me." Then they asked him, he says, "How come you didn't answer us when we came to you in the field?" And he says, "I'm a paid day worker." And he says, "If I answer you, I'm taking away time from my boss. And I'm not allowed to do that because he pays me by the hour." Right? Not people that are looking at Facebook all day while they're working. I'll get that email later. Right? He wouldn't even answer somebody. That's how careful he was. Then they asked him, he says, "How come when you're walking through a thorn bush, you picked up your robe so that and then you put it down afterwards?" So he says, "If I scrape my skin, it heals itself. But if I scrape, my cloak, it's very difficult for me. I'm not going to be able to mend it. Says, I'd rather scrape myself and let it, it'll heal itself. It's just a little scratch." So then they ask him, "How come you put the wood on one shoulder and the cloak on the other shoulder?" And he answered, "Because the cloak I borrowed to wear, not to use to carry wood." And he says, "I can't. It's not I don't have permission to put wood on it." Right? He was careful on every single little thing that he did. Then he went and says, "How come you walked with shoes in the water? Out of the water, you didn't walk with shoes." So he says, "When I'm not in the water, I could see what I'm walking on. And I could see what I'm walking on. I know not to walk in certain places. When I'm in the water, I don't see anything, so I need the shoes over there." You look at every single thing was calculated. This is how big rabbis live their life. They live their life with every little thing is calculated. But the important lesson that I want to bring out from here, this is a big rabbi that was able to make it rain when it wasn't raining. All the big rabbis in Israel had to go to him to ask him to do it. And what did he say? The last thing, they asked him, "How come your wife comes out all dressed up?" And he answered, "So I don't look at other women." This is a rabbi that is able to make it rain when it's not supposed to rain, when it's not raining. Yet he is still nervous about looking at other women. So he says, "I want my wife to be pretty for me when I get home, so I don't have to look at a woman." So don't start saying, "It's all right, I don't need a pretty wife." Right? Even though I just spent a nice amount of time that you shouldn't be, going for all for that. But looks is very important. You have to be attracted to your wife, and the other way around. You have to be attracted to your husband. Right? This is extremely, extremely important. You look at the biggest rabbi. The biggest rabbi, he didn't want to look at anybody else. So he says, "I want my wife to look pretty for me. This is also a lesson for women. Women have to know is that when they get dressed up, they have to get dressed up for their husbands, not for everybody outside. When they come home is when they should put on the makeup and all the pretty stuff. Not in the morning when they leave, right? Because they're getting dressed up for the husband. And a woman wants that her husband, won't look at other women, right? And it's very important that a woman has to make sure that she has, and again, men can't use this against it. Well, you look like a slob, so I'm looking at everybody else. This is not for you, men, right? This is just for the woman perspective, so close your ears, right? But women have to understand that they have to keep everything looking nice, so for the husband. The husband, in nowadays and age, it's a very scary time. It's a very scary time. You can't, you're walking in the street, there's advertisements, right? People that unfortunately waste their time with movies and TVs and all that, forget about it, they're doomed, right? They're all looking at all this nonsense. How, they're going to compare it to their wife. How is that going to work out? Says the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot, right? It says, V'al ta'amin be'atzmecha ad yom motcha, which means, the translation is, don't believe in yourself until the day that you die. The Baal Tanua there, it explains, it says there was once a big rabbi, right? I'll read it in one line inside. He explains from a Gemara in Brachot, Sharei Yochanan Kohen Gadol, Shimesh Bekuhuna Gdula 80 Shana, V'lebesof Na'aseh Tzduki. Translation, there was once a Kohen Gadol, right? The biggest of the biggest. He served in the Beit HaMikdash for 80 years. And in the end, he became a heretic. Don't say, don't worry about it. It doesn't affect me, right? I could do whatever I want. Doesn't affect me, right? All these tough guys, it affects you plenty. And if it doesn't affect you, then you're sick. And you have problems because it should affect you when you look at all these things, right? Don't ever believe in yourself, I don't have to, I'm already old, I learned Torah all day, I'm not worried about these things. Says the Mishnah Pirkei Avot, don't believe in yourself until the day you die. The Satan is very strong, right? There's many stories in the Gemara of big righteous people that they try to say, the Satan can't get me. And the Satan was able to get them. You should never say that. You don't want tests, right? The one thing is that you have to be very, very careful in. The next question is that we have to deal with is, how is it possible to, so let's just summarize that what we just spoke about over here, and we're running close to out of time. But we just spoke about looks is extremely important. Looks is very important, but you have to realize that who you are, right? And I'm not talking about a rating scale. Well, I'm a this, so I deserve a this, right? There's no that's nonsense, right? Whoever doesn't know what I'm talking about, bless you, and may you continue being blessed. Right? I'm sure everybody else knows what I'm talking about. You have to realize that the more proud that you are, the more arrogant that you are, the less of a chance of you are going to be satisfied with who you end up with, right? If you end up with somebody, you have to worry about that. And again, looks is very important. It's very important nowadays, especially when we have the nonsense that's going out there. You have to be attracted to your wife. But the more that you work on yourself, the prettier that your wife is going to be. And that's how we're going to speak about it now. How is it possible to make your wife more attracted, or your husband more attracted in your eyes, without, like we said before, having to, hey, honey, this is a great plastic surgeon. Not that you don't need anything, but like, look at this reviews. Oh, look at the Groupon. Nose job 50% off. Not that you need it. Maybe you know any friends that you need it. Try to like hint it in, and be like, that's not going to end well for anybody. Besides that, women usually have a list of things that they're going to fix, right? It's like right next to the list of how their wedding is going to be is like a list of like, the plastic surgery, abilities that they're going to have. Maybe not everybody, but from what I heard is that, they're like, okay, I'll do this, and then I'll do this, and then I'll do this, and I'll do this. Okay. All right. So anyways, how do you make it without, hurting your wife's feelings, without shelling out a few $1,000s, and helping yourself spiritually? So now, the simple answer, and we're going to explain it, is guard your eyes. Very simple. The more that you guard your eyes, the prettier that your wife is going to be, and we'll explain it. Somebody who doesn't guard his eyes, somebody that goes and looks at everything that's possibly moving that is maybe a female, right? He is able to scan his peripheral vision without any problem. He's an army radar. He knows things, and I remember I spoke about this before. There are people that know behind them, without even looking, that there's a girl there. And they're like, it's coming up in 6, 3, 2, 1, and bam, he's right. And be like, it's people, they think it's a gift. Right? It's really a curse, right? They think it's it's the best thing. You know how many accidents happen because of these things, that people are driving, and they forget that they're driving, and so people that you're not guarding your eyes, that you're not watching what you see. What happens? What happens inside? So you go and you see a woman, right? And you see a woman, and something sticks out about her. Whatever it is that sticks out, she has a very pretty face, right? And then you see another girl that has very pretty hair, and then yada 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 yada. In your mind, subconsciously, what happens is that you sort of morph all these different qualities that you've seen into one superwoman that doesn't exist, and you're like, well, I saw that girl that was prettier, so why should I settle for this? There's obviously better out there. And then there's one girl in the office, she has a great personality, so why should I settle for this? You morph everything that you see, and this, by the way, everything that I'm saying goes for women, but just reverse that. Right? This is just more applicable to men, so it's easier to cater toward them. When you're going and you're looking at all these things, it completely, first of all, raises your expectations. You'd be like, oh, come on. She's not, this supermodel, and she's not this. You're looking at everybody else, and that's going to bring yourself down. This I'm talking about just before you're married. We didn't even get to when you're married. Now, what happens if, let's say, you look at magazines, and you're looking at, unfortunately, you waste your time with sins of watching TVs and movies and all this nonsense. When you're doing all these things, what do you see? You see people that are to perfection, right? Not only are they to perfection, sometimes they actually have to Photoshop them to additional perfection, and they do special effects for additional perfection, right? So you see all these things, and this is what is the average American? We said watches a TV a daily day is like 4 hours or something like that, which is ridiculous. It makes absolutely no sense. And I said once 4 hours, and they're like, no, I think it's more like 6. Someone mentioned, right? So whatever it is, that's terrible, right? Which means that so for 4 hours a day, people are just having things flown at them, right? From women that are supermodels to men that all they do is they take one pill and they look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? Oh, just buy it for $39.99. We'll send you 2 free, right? And you have all this nonsense that gets shoved down your throat, and then you go on your first date, and your first date, she's a pretty girl, everything is good, but you're like, oh, come on. You know what show I saw tonight? Oh, come on, you can't compare the two, right? Even if you don't think about that, it's in you subconsciously. It's in you subconsciously because you had that. You had that expectation that you need. There is, and all this gets put on steroids if you actually have, relationships before you get married. I'm talking about physical relationships. If you have a physical relationship before you get married, this is all gets even more so. Which means is that, you dated 5 girls. Unfortunately, before you became religious, you dated a few girls for a long time. What happens is that because everything that I said just puts that on steroids, which means is if you dated a girl, she had an amazing personality. Everything else was in the toilet, but her personality was amazing, right? And then you date another girl, looks amazing. Everything else, whatever, average. Then you date another girl, each one had a special quality. What happens is when you get married, it's something a little bit different. And what happens when you get married, you'd be like, phew, I could have, and things don't work out. The first time you're like, oh, I should have married, girlfriend number 1, girlfriend number 2. God, it would have been much better than this. You don't think about all her bad qualities, you just think about the good, right? People always say the good old days. It's never all the bad old days when I was broken, I was in college, and I didn't have any money. No, the good old days when I was able to party all night long, and I was able to eat stuff, and my stomach was made out of metal, and then no problem, right? People always think about the good old days. It's never the bad old days. Because the reason is because you always realize the good. If you go and you're having all these physical relationships before you get married, you're going to remember only the good. You're going to remember only the good, which is going to come in a very, very big problematic issue when you get married. When you get married, it's going to be like, every little fight, you can be like, I knew I messed it up. God forbid you should ever say that out loud. It's like, what'd you say? I love you. Yeah. So, anyways, moving on. There's another important concept, and I mentioned it so many times, and I'll mention it again so many times. People think that, okay, and bear with me. Is it okay we have a few more minutes, and we're going to wrap it up? Okay, we'll wrap it up. So, this is the thing. There's always one person, but everyone else is like, come on already. It's hot over here. My show is starting soon. Chas v'shalom. No, just kidding. So that's not allowed. I have another speaker that I'm running to. So, but first of all, a person has to understand also that when you're learning Torah, is similar to working out, right? If you're working out, right? If let's say you want to build muscle, right? If you want to build muscle, so you start off curling, let's say 25 pounds, or whatever, let's say 15 pounds, right? You start 15 pounds, and you do it until, 10 reps. And then you come back, next week, and you be like, you know what? I'm feeling strong, I ate a big meal today, 12 and a half pounds, why not, right? And you go a little bit up. And eventually you build yourself up, right? Now, what's the trick? How do you build muscle? The way you build muscle is you have to do something called tearing it. You have to tear the muscle. If you want to become a bodybuilder, you have to go, and let's say you could only lift this 80, you're up to 80 pounds curling, right? And you're lifting 80 pounds, but you could do 3 times, right? And you're doing it 3 times. You know when you build your muscle? The 4th time. When you can't do it anymore and you force yourself, that's when you're building the muscle. When you feel like you're done, and then you push yourself another 2. You want to build muscle. You want to, that's a trick of gaining anything. You want to, it's the same thing with memory. You want to build it up. You go till you can't go anymore, and then you go another 2 steps, and that's when you build it. The same thing with Torah. Torah, that many people have attention spans about 30 to 40 seconds, right? So they go on and off for about an hour right there, and then they're like, oh, it's an hour, come on. let's go. It's it's time to finish up. It's time to wrap it up. You don't realize that there's a certain time that Yetzer Hara says, fine, the guy's gonna say nice stories. You're probably not gonna gain anything. Whatever, it's fine. Yeah, and he goes, and then finally he starts getting nervous. You're here for an hour. It's gonna start making an effect. So he starts, making it a little bit hot, or starts, checking your phone, right? Doing the swipe back and forth type of thing where you don't do anything, right? And then you start, the Yetzer Hara starts working really hard. You want to know when you grow in Torah? When you feel like you can't handle it anymore, then you push yourself another 5-10 minutes, and you push yourself and you concentrate. That's when you're going to grow spiritually, right? The same thing works with anything else. Moving back to where we got left off. So that doesn't count in the few minutes. That was just a side topic. We're gonna now a few more minutes. So the where was I? Oh, very, very important, extremely important. Everybody has a certain amount of pleasure that they're supposed to get in the next world, in this world, right? There's a certain amount of money that they're supposed to make in this world. And I spoke about this many times, but bear with me, this is so important, right? And the easiest way is imagine you have a fuel tank, a gas, right? The more you drive, the less gas that you have. The more that you use out of your spiritual tank, the less that you have. So let's say, for example, money is the easiest example, and it's the one I usually give. If somebody was supposed to make a certain amount of money this year, and he goes and he has an opportunity that he's going to make some money, but it's illegal. And he goes and he decides he's going to do it. I'm not going to go. I know I spoke about this idea before, but he goes and he does this deal and he makes the money, right? The biggest kicker that's going to hurt him is, besides the fact that he's always looking over his shoulder, he's not actually enjoying the money in this world. When he gets into the next world, God's going to say, you stole $10 million. If you would have waited 6 weeks, you were going to come to it legally. That was going to come to you anyway. What, do you think you could take something that doesn't belong to you? You are going to get that. You are going to get that money. But you couldn't wait, so now you're suffering both in this world and in the next world. The same thing is with, let's say, sexual pleasure. Many people are like, okay, you know what? I'll have some fun. The stupidest thing I ever heard was practice. Let's make some. We have to practice before we're married, right? It's the dumbest thing, right? And I think I spoke about it. I think I spoke about it over here. The one thing that you want somebody to not have experience with is marriage. You don't want to marry. You want marry somebody who's divorced 5 times. You must be good at it by this time, right? That's married 5 times already. Just the opposite. You want someone that has no experience. You want somebody that has nothing to do with no understanding in marriage, and you go and you build a life together. You have a certain amount of pleasure in this world, right? If you go and you take it earlier, illegally, all you're doing is you're stealing it from yourself and your husband in the future. It's a lose-lose situation. It makes no sense. If you're dating a girl and things are going well and you even want to get married with her, the most important thing is you should say, okay, Shomel Nigal, we can't touch, we can't do anything, we can't become physical. If we do, we're just stealing from ourselves in the future. And that's why some people go, they're married for, they date for 7 years, right? They get married and they're bored. It's like, what's halachically allowed to do in the bedroom, right? We need to do, you know why you're bored? Because you used up all the things illegally. You had everything that was coming for you. And not only that is when you do it the right way, it's a mitzvah. Now a mitzvah, you can get more and more and more and more. You can build it up. You can build your meter up when you do it the right way. There's so many things that people just lose out when doing the wrong way. It is very, very important that you have to be careful with this physical relationships before you get married. Mess up your marriage. It just messes it up. It messes it up. You start, besides the fact that you start comparing. You start comparing to everything else that you had in the previous thing, right? And what happens if someone did this? Serious tshuva. Someone does serious tshuva, it's going to clean them. It's going to clean them completely, right? Again, it's serious tshuva. Now I want to finish off with the last thought, and then open up to any questions. There's very interesting when you look in the creation. In the creation of the world, right? You go to Sheshet Maaseh Bereshit, right? It looks like everything that, you look at the creation, you read the story, and you think outside the box for a second, it looks like things did not go as planned, right? The first day, God created a certain light, right? Or Haganuz, it's called, right? After 36 hours, God had to remove this light. Something wasn't going on there. The second day, God had to split the heavens and the earth, right? And it says that's the day. It doesn't say. It says that it wasn't. It doesn't say that he told on that day, right? Also, there's also explanation that hell was created on the second day. The third day, HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells the trees, Etz pli oseh pli, which means is a tree and its bark should taste the same. Nobody listened except for the etrog, right? Seems like things are not going as planned, right? Then you have the fourth day where you have the lights, right? And then the sun and the moon both had equal light. And suddenly the moon says, hey, listen, God, we can't have 2 superpowers running over the world over here. You have to do something, right? And then God says, okay, you're going to lose the light. You look at it, it does not seem to be like it worked out well. It looks like a lot of things failed, didn't go according to plan. The obvious question is, this is God. What does it mean that this didn't work out and this didn't work out and this is not good? At the end of all the creation, you see that God said that it was good twice. It was good twice. Why would it say it was good twice? And this is such an important lesson. And I heard this, if I'm not mistaken, from Zechariah Wallerstein many years ago. And he says as this, he says, you see from here that imperfection is perfection. What you think as imperfection is really perfection. There are many people, we're finished with this last story thing. There are many people that they think that, you have somebody who's absolutely gorgeous. And then you have a guy who's so handsome, everyone has money, everything is like excellent. And they get married, you think they must have the best marriage. And meanwhile, it is the worst marriage possible. And you're like, how's it possible? Good midot, good this, good, everything is good. And the answer is, you don't fit like a puzzle if you're like this. There's something that the wife has that is missing qualities, and something that the husband has that are additional qualities. And together they go and they connect. And with that connection, they go and they rise higher. The biggest perfect marriage in this world is an imperfect marriage. You have two people that are imperfect working together, working with each other to gain to perfection. There are many times you go and you're married and you're like, oh, well, why is my wife, unfortunately, it's never happened, but oh, my wife was so lazy, she doesn't work, sits on the computer shopping all day, right? And their husband says, this guy doesn't, so stingy, he looks at my bills all the time, and you don't realize that both of this is what you're working together to gain to perfection for that. That's exactly, if God put you together, that means that you have the ultimate ability to gain the most from each other. Which means is that you may see like, oh, the best thing that could happen is that she's lazy. The best thing that could happen to you is that he's stingy. And together you work together to complete yourselves and to raise yourself to a higher level. A quick recap. Looks, very important. Very important, and it has to be. You have to be attracted to your wife, right? There are many people, and I am nobody to disagree with big rabbis, and if they say whatever they say goes. But I strongly feel, and I spoke to a few rabbis and they agree with me. Nowadays and age, especially to the generation that we're dealing with, somebody it's a must. They must be attracted to their wife, and she must be attracted to the husband. Otherwise, there's going to be problems. You have to be attracted. That being said, the more that you guard your eyes, the prettier that your wife is going to be, and vice versa as well. The more that you watch yourself, the prettier that she's going to make it. Guaranteed. I guarantee it. I've told this to people. They came back to me. And they said it works 100%. Not like 99%, it works 100%. It's a guarantee thing, right? You will make your wife prettier in your eyes. And what more can a man want? By guarding your eyes. You don't gain anything by looking at another girl, right? You gain absolutely nothing. A moment of pleasure, right? It's useless. It's useless. So you got to work. And nowadays is the summer. It's a very, very difficult time, right? It's a very difficult time, both for men, for guarding your eyes, and for women, for dressing modestly, to making somebody else, preventing from guarding their eyes. So it's very important, very imperative. Right? Even if you're not married yet, now is the time to start. It's going to be easier then. Any questions? No questions. You told me. Good? Hazak